I'm Stephanie Woerner, and I am Principal Research Scientist and Director of MIT CISR. I'm also one of the authors of the book Future Ready, and we'll be talking about one part of the book. What are the capabilities that you need to build so that you can really operate with resilience? Because what we're seeing with the digital economy is that things are changing, companies are being asked to adapt, and really you have to have a new kind of capabilities to try to achieve that resilience and to capture value from your initiatives and your operations. When we wrote the book, we talked about 3 different kinds of value that companies could achieve. One was value from operations. A second was value from customers. And then I think one that a lot of companies have not really spent as much time thinking about is value from ecosystems. And so when we talk about capabilities that you need to build, we think of, for operational excellence and operational value, you need to be thinking about being modular and agile, and also being ambidextrous, taking out costs while innovating at the same time. For customers' value, we found that really defining a purpose, making it so that customers know what you stand for is very important, as is developing a great customer experience. For ecosystem, it's around partnering, dynamic partnering. What we have found in our research is that companies can't do it all themselves, typically. There might be a rare company out there that can, so that it means that you really need to think about who your partners are going to be, who has capabilities that you can bring into your organization and build, say, offerings or other ways of, or other initiatives. And then finally, we have some kind of foundational capabilities that we talk about. We talk about developing rapid learning, making data a strategic asset, linking individual behaviors to team goals. And so with that very short introduction, I'd like to get started and have each of the panelists talk about a short description of your company and how do capabilities fit into it, and how do you think about creating and capturing value. Cynthia, can we start with you?
Sure. I'm with Adobe. A lot of people know Adobe for Photoshop, one of our marquee products. But Adobe is a lot more than that. We have 3 clouds: our Creative Cloud, our Document Cloud, and our Experience Cloud, which offers a lot of different solutions for personalizations and things like that. So, when I think about, how this fits with what we do, the purpose of our company is really to create and help people create wonderful digital experiences, from an individual all the way up to a large enterprise. And we tend to inside the company use that when we look at how do we run our organization within IT, and how do we do other initiatives. So that's a little bit about Adobe.
Great. Oğuz.
Hello. Most of the audience would remember from our panel discussion earlier in this morning, Koç Holding is a conglomerate and operating in multiple sectors. As an example, we produce ketchup, we produce oil, we manufacture refrigerators, washing machines, we manufacture cars, buses, trucks, even yachts and ships. And in order to achieve our transformation goals in such a diversified portfolio, we make sure that we are having those capability development programs in place. And I would like to highlight 3 of them today here. First of all is the customer side. So having a omni-channel seamless customer experience is a top priority for us. Secondly, the capabilities around data, starting from the infrastructure, governance, analytics, and decision by data behavior. And lastly, the agility. I would like to mention the enterprise agility. on this one. We are running Agile at scale in our organization at the group-wide level. And it is not only for technology units, but for all business units as well. One of the good examples of this transformation is Ford Otosan. It is one of our automotive manufacturing company. It is a joint venture with Ford Motor Company. And now Ford Otosan is running Agile at scale. So for all its business units end to end. And this is, imagine how this is difficult for a rooted company in manufacturing industry.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. I mean, it's interesting that we have very different companies here. We have capabilities, services for transformation. We have manufacturing. I mean, that's a gamut from ketchup to cars and ships. And then Mikhail, tell us a little bit about what you're doing and how do capabilities fit into this?
Well, I run a service company, and we're ultimately a rent-a-leader organization, rent-a-transformational leader organization. We bring in specific talent. You know, it's a leadership talent that's transformational leadership talent that's required to pull these things off. And when you talk about dynamic capabilities, you know, again, those are capabilities. The book I really enjoyed reading was The Principles by Ray Dalio. One of the principles for running an effective organization, according to Ray Dalio, was recruiting principle, which is most organizations look at three qualities, which are skills, experience, and ability. And they hire first on experience, second on skill, and third on ability. Ray was a huge fan of putting it upside down. So we hire based on ability, and you know, being dynamic and being a dynamic leader, having dynamic capabilities in the organization is one of those abilities. So that's our recruiting principle, and we believe it's, you know, the core is the people, which is what you called you know, foundational capabilities in your book.
Mm-hmm. Oğuz, what's the biggest challenge or opportunity to developing capabilities that you then use and leverage as you transform, or as you, you know, move further along in your transformation?
Developing dynamic capabilities requires a mindset shift, and where employees need to embrace uncertainty and view change as an opportunity but not a threat. As human beings, we are all good at adaptation. The difficulty lies in finding the correct path, and this is where good leaders kick in order to make this a successful transformation, successful journey for all stakeholders. Leaders should clearly show why this change is needed, how it will happen, and how they are going to support all employees. Only then the whole transformation will be a successful transformation, and the potential will be unlocked.
So you're really looking at a lot of these capabilities around your people, your workforce, and developing
leadership.
those kinds of things.
Yes.
And Cynthia?
Yeah, I would agree. I think communication is a big part of it. Communication helps build trust, which I think people need to, you know, be very trustful and feel that, you know, leaders have their backs, you know, as they're going down this path. They need to be able to kind of put their toes into different areas, maybe a little bit of the ketchup, maybe not the oil, but the ketchup, you know, in order to, you know, figure out and try new things out. And people need to be able to make mistakes. And I think we need to help people know it's okay to make mistakes as they go down that path. In my organization, we've done a lot of work with culture, you know, and actually it's an initiative that started probably about a year after I had gotten into, you know, to Adobe to kind of make, you know, a view of what our identity as an organization is. And, you know, we started this mindset of we want to have cloud-like characteristics in our DNA, because within my organization, they were kind of floundering. We had a lot of, old legacy systems, we were on the way to the cloud, all this stuff, but they didn't have an identity. So bringing together, culture and helping them think about things in a different way, allow them to take a leap, try new technologies out. I think you talked about the foundational technologies, and that's what, is in your book as well, those foundational technologies. And they experiment. And I'll have to tell you, when you give people that leeway and, you give the ability to have think time and experimentation time, miracles happen. I mean, it just kind of pops out of the woodwork what people can do if you support them.
We have done, some of the research that we've done has been around the importance of leaders moving from a command and control type of mindset to a coach and communicate. And I know that in our case studies, this has actually been really tough. It's nice to be able to command and control. And it means that you've got to develop that communication skill that you're talking to.
Right.
And in some of our case studies that we've done, I think of one about CarMax. Their CIO, Shamim, said the same thing as you. Give them, train them, give them skills, let them experiment, and then watch what happens. You won't be able to really talk about, you won't be able to imagine it.
It's amazing. It's truly amazing what happens, how people can blossom and how they can move into other roles and start suggesting things. It's really, really quite powerful.
Do you have an example of something that's happened?
Oh, yeah, I have actually quite a few examples, but I think the one that I would use is, things happen in computer operations, right? Where people are on call, they have to fix things. So, it's been a process for a long time to kind of look at tickets and shift left, right, and try to shift them out. Well, probably back about 3-4 years ago, it was actually pre-pandemic, we gave a problem. A group got together, solved it, and they created what we call the self-healing framework using open source. And it applied artificial intelligence to look at these issues that were happening and self-heal them, right? So self-heal them, but yet send messages off to engineering teams to say you need to apply this permanent fix. So it took all of that work and converted it to, automation and messaging and things like that. And that was all born out of, hey, how can we look at this problem in a different way? But I could go on with different examples, but it just unleashes people's minds to be able to think in a different way.
Mikhail, what have you seen in your work around supporting and leading transformations, especially the leaders that you're hiring?
So one of the panelists earlier today, when we talked about digital transformations, talked about the fact that a transformation doesn't have to start at the very top. It doesn't have to start at the very bottom. There's no best practice. But at any level in an organization where you find yourself, that's where you start a transformation. And then what that means to me is, Jim Collins in The Good to Great talks about getting the right people on the bus, then figure out who takes which seat on the bus, and then figuring out where the bus is going, which is, to your point, Cynthia, talking about giving people autonomy and kind of figuring it out together. So that's been a key to our success. Starting a transformation wherever you end up being, on the hierarchy, but you're a transformational leader, you started right there. You get the right team and give the team the autonomy.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, the seats on the bus, I always like that. And what I will mention on that is sometimes people are in the wrong seat. And if you can find the right seat, miracles happen, right? So, leaders should spend the amount of time working with teams to get to know people, not just in their current role, but, what they like to do, what their past experiences are. Because sometimes they just end up in that wrong seat. And if you move them over to the right side over there, hey, they're going to be a different person.
When we talk about transformations, we talk about that in every transformation, you have 4 explosions, what we call explosions, big organizational changes. And the first one, and one of the most important, is this idea of getting people, you want the right people in the right roles. And figuring out those decision rights is one of the most important things that you, and you're both talking about that. And Oğuz, I'm sure that you've dealt with that also, haven't you, in the transformation that you're doing?
Yes, that's why the agile transformation is in place, and we would like to have more autonomous teams across the coach group and more cross-functional teams, not within a single company, but with other group companies.
Oh.
So yes, those types of groups, those type of work groups, really create magnificent results.
Now, how is that changing your culture? I mean, we've both talked. We've had some description of culture here. What is that doing to your culture to think about cross-functional across, not just within company, but across the companies?
Yes, it is of course a volunteer, attempt at first, but people are encouraged to do working in such cross-functional teams, and in addition, the rotation within the group, within the other business units is highly promoted. So you need to rotate to climb the ladder in your career. So people would like to experience more and more projects and more different business units for not only to the business, but for their own career as well.
Wonderful.
So I have a new word for you, voluntold.
Well,
Yeah.
You can take that back.
Yes.
I was teaching last week, and I pointed to someone and I said, I'm going to use my prerogative. And I said, so you could start. And she said, I've been voluntold. And so how do you start to bring all of this together to capture value or to create value? And what kinds of initiatives are you undergoing to both build capabilities and create value? Mikhail, why don't you start with this one?
So a friend of mine used an analogy to water. He talked about data and data quality, and he said, water, when it's sewage water, you really can't use it for anything. But once it goes through a first cycle, you can actually use it to water plants. Once it goes through a second cycle, you could use it, for something else. Eventually, once you clean a little more, you could drink it. And then when you clean it even more, you could use it in a sterile lab, in a clean room. And so what's the purpose? The data team right here just before us talked about a business case first, and then, all right, and now we will provide the data or the capability for it. So a lot of times organizations feel that they need an organizational change first, and then they can take on transformation. Oh, they need to put their data in order and then run with the transformation. They need to go agile, or they need to rationalize their portfolio, or resolve, or get rid of the technical debt. All of those things are all valid, but you can't go, let's do portfolio rationalization with no value at the end, and then go with the digital transformation. You got to do both. You got to be able to do both at the same time. Get the water to just the right level of cleanliness, use up a use case, create value. Do a little more of cleanup, create a little more value. So you sort of have to do both, is our mantra.
So you're looking at a stair-step type of build it incrementally.
That's right, and that's that's number 3.
Number 3 pathway.
It almost looks like I read the book.
You did your homework.
Cynthia, what are some of the ways that you're thinking about creating and capturing value, and how do you help other companies create and capture value?
Yeah, so we're looking at, well, first I'll talk about how Adobe brings value to other companies. And then, because we're taking some of that internally, actually, also, and using some of those same techniques internally, but it's all about the experience, right? Building the great personalized experience, all the way, as I said before, from an individual to a large company. So our tools, run the gamut, and I would say that they are equipped. They've been equipped with, AI ML for some time to help take actually a lot of the mundane activities out of the work that people do. And the way that we view it is not replacing the human, but actually creating helpers along the way. You can think about it as a, a co-pilot. I think Microsoft and others are using the term co-pilot. We're using the, more of the term, a helper, an assistant along the way. So that's what we're doing with, our products in the external facing view. Internally, we're doing the same. I mentioned some of what we had done in operations, but we're doing similar activities, within our back office, creating helpers with RPA and other activities. We're also, looking at, what we can do in customer support. We've put helpers and assistants and bots into the customer support area. And now we're looking actually, how do we give our internal workers a different paradigm, a different way to work? So how do we give, our workers internally, the tools at their fingertips or the helpers that they could use, the intelligence that they can use. So we're kind of looking at the internal work paradigm. We feel that happy employees will make happy customers. What we do internally will translate to happy engineers and great products and that sort of thing. So a little bit from the outside in and then the inside out.
And so you're looking at value from both sides, both internally and externally.
That's right.
I can tell you that some of the research that we did show a very strong correlation between having a very good employee experience, and those companies had an excellent customer experience as well as higher innovation and higher growth.
Yeah, some of our internal surveys, with our employees have shown that as well. And I was so happy that they said they liked the IT tools. So that was great. Yes.
Oğuz, how are you working at bringing all of this together to try to create and capture value? What are some of the types of value that you see your transformation as generating?
Let me start from the beginning. In 2016, we started our transformation program to prepare the whole group companies for the future. And we started with digital technologies. We started with digital transformation. And along the way, as Mikhail mentioned, we saw that it is not a serial progress, and at a time, we understand that, okay, we need some organizational changes and we need some changes in the work style. And then the agile transformation started in parallel with digital transformation. And at some point, by the way, we are also very sensitive at employee engagement and employee experience. So we get feedback for all these programs from our employees, modify the program if needed, or let's say fine-tune them. And after a point, we introduced zero-based budget program because we need to release more funds to fund our new digital projects, and these projects has to show that, okay, this will be beneficial in terms of financial statements to the company. And lastly, the program involves the carbon transition because as the group, we are also sensitive to the environmental issues, social issues, and human-related issues. So all these programs integrate with each other. One of the input from one program can be an output from the other program. And within all these programs, taking into account that we have 115,000 employees, we still continue getting their feedback to make the next development programs, make the next capability building programs. Because we are now confident that from all these transformation programs, we really unlock value in terms of financial results, in terms of productivity, in terms of engagement, both for employees and customers.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's step back and look at also operational value and the kinds of capabilities that you need to build to get operational value, because that's actually the backbone of everything. It's hard to have great customer value and great ecosystem value if you don't have a good operational backbone. And so these are some of the capabilities that I think of as helping a company build resilience, because if you've got a good platform, you've got the pieces that you need to reconfigure yourself, especially if you've componentized. Are you seeing something like that, Oğuz? Are you working on your platforms like that?
Well, we are developing platforms. For example, one company in home development is now transforming itself to a kind of marketplace. And they are trying to use the know-how from our IT service company and other companies that have some e-commerce platforms. And in addition, we also saw in our journey that there is a lack of resources in data analytics and AI. Still, there is a lack of resources. That's why we launched a company which works as the digital transformation engine for not only for Koç Group, but for the whole company. That company sits as the, let's say, center of excellence and the use case center for all companies. So we can copy one project to another company easily with the help of those guys. So there is really a benefit for us.
Very nice reuse, very nice. Cynthia, what do you see in terms of platforms and how they fit in?
Yeah, I think platforms are really important. You know, at Adobe, we moved to the cloud SaaS, our products, about 10 years ago. And with that, we had to, retool how engineering worked, and platforms were born at that time to actually do, the plug and play that was discussed. Internally, as far as running the company, we had to do similar. The systems and the processes and everything that we had were geared towards cycles. You probably have the same, right? Daily cycle, weekly cycle, monthly, whatever. And you have to change those cycles to be real time. And you have to do that by re-engineering and re-platforming. So we went through a series of doing that. We had this mantra, have cloud-like characteristics in our DNA. So that helped the development teams think about things differently, and then break down, the monolithic services and applications that we had into platforms that could be reused and plug and play. So quite important, important.
And then are you taking any of those platforms and then commercializing them externally to become a service? We're starting to see companies talk about this. I don't know if I've...
Yeah, of our services that we deliver to customers, of course, those are all commercialized. In a few cases, yeah, we've been talking about it. Primarily, I would say in the content management space.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, the content management space.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Mikhail, we're going to come to you, but I was going to ask people who are on the live stream if they would like to go and have questions. I'm looking at the tablet and seeing if there are any questions. So, Mikhail, tell me a little bit about platforms. How does this fit in with leadership and the transformations that you're helping?
This is a great question because operational capabilities are a core of any transformation. And I was reading an article maybe a couple of months ago that talked about statistics and talked about the fact that over 50% of digital transformations are basically ERP replacements. And the author of the article was being sarcastic about it. Basically, hey, we're calling the wrong thing. And for a minute, it didn't make sense to me. But come to think of it, right? There's only 3 strategies out there, right? Strategy types, which are customer intimacy. You're bending over backwards for an individual customer. Product or service excellence, right? You're a leader in a particular product or service, so you're spending most of your money on R&D. And then operational excellence, which is you make the same product or service everybody else does, only better, cheaper, faster. And statistically, over 50% of companies are operational excellence type companies. So they really have to get their process in order. And that's where digital transformation focuses. So there's no sarcasm. It's the reality. For a lot of us, it's those fundamental. It's blocking and tackling that is the nuts and bolts of the digital transformation.
Now I'm gonna argue a little bit with you there.
Right.
So when we talk about a digital transformation, that's one piece of it. Is is the operational excellence. But this is the reason you have to be ambidextrous, because at the same time, you need to be looking at your customer experience and those offerings that you're putting together for your customers. And so you can stage your transformation, but eventually you're going to have to look at, I think that customer experience and new offerings and new revenue streams. Let's see, no questions here. Are there any questions in the audience? And if not, we'll continue the conversation. I have to say, I'm going to rely on Chitra because this light back here is very bright. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what's the most challenging capabilities for you to build? Are they around operational excellence, customer value, some of the foundational capabilities, or around working in an ecosystem?
I'm ready to answer. I think that the biggest ability that organizations or leaders need to have is the ability to pivot. Moreover, to be able to cancel a given project or spend or initiative. And I'll give you an example. We had a customer recently who was hooked up on your typical technology will save the world. Let's implement this new PLM technology, product lifecycle management technology, and we're going to be all right. And we said fine. We helped them gather requirements and figure out what was wrong today, what the bright future looked like. And when we figured out what was wrong today, we realized that no technology would solve the issue. The fact that customer service today receives phone calls with complaints about a product that's on the shelves in supermarkets that they're not aware of, right? Means that there's an internal communication issue within the company and no technology is going to solve it. So what we ended up recommending was to actually shut down a software or technology project and create a governance center so that the appropriate parties within the company could talk to each other. Once they figure that out, once we figure that process out, maybe we'll start automating it. But for the moment, we're not ready, and you can't jump to technology first. You got to go people, process, technology in that order.
So both of you are large companies with different business units, multiple different kinds of customers. What is the ecosystem implications of the transformation that you're doing or the strategies that you have?
Well, he's much larger than me.
But you must have ecosystem thoughts about it.
Yeah, we do.
So, Oğuz.
Well, it's a challenging issue for us. And when we talk about ecosystems, Koç Group itself is an ecosystem as well. But still, we are trying to find the ways to use the data among Koç Group companies.
Okay.
So we may have for single Koç customer, or we may have, let's say, for Otosan customer, but we can unlock more potential when we use that data together with companies. But there are some barriers, of course, like regulations or other kind of legal stuff. Other than that, we need to first find a way to introduce a proper data governance among those companies, and then mark each, let's say, data field. Okay, this could be shared among companies or outside the Koç Group, and then we can be sure, okay, we can build a kind of project, a kind of platform on this data.
Okay, so data becomes one of those critical capability, data governance, data analytics, data science, critical capabilities to becoming more resilient and really thinking about being in an ecosystem. Cynthia.
So with us, on the ecosystem side, it's more about the experience that the partners have with us. Because when I look at the ecosystem, I think you said it before, you can't do everything by yourself, right? A company can't. So we have a series of partners that we use to deliver, services and bring our services to market. But we also have developer partners, right? So people can develop, plugins to our products or, add-ons and things like that. So it's all about that ease of use and being able to, locate and store and find, the different assets that they create.
So this comes back to the discussion we were having previously about the platform having the platform that you actually can plug and play, that you can create those modules and that you can have. Chitra, we have a question?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
We can hear you, can't
see
see you.
Yes.
We can hear you.
So I was wondering how, taking your thought further from a platform and ecosystem perspective, on one hand, we want to get more agile and, bring empowerment down and decision making so that we can move faster and have business platforms have their own evolution towards customer success. On other hand, we want an ecosystem which requires a lot of integrations, which requires a lot of data regulations, which requires bigger customer value proposition, which comes by a lot of coordination between the teams, which kind of brings slowness in the whole process of aligning everyone's roadmaps, aligning everyone's incentives together. So how do you see that agility and a product model which is very decentralized mindset to an ecosystem which is very bigger customer value proposition and has a centralized roadmap and some kind of a governance needed in that? So how do you balance and how do you make that work in a big organization like yours?
Cynthia may answer.
I think it's
Why
yours.
don't you
I think
take
it's a
us
question
through
too.
this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a very large organization.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the most important part is to identify the value for all stakeholders in the ecosystem. So if one is participating to the ecosystem, participating to the platform, they need to clearly show, okay, this is the benefit for me, so I am going to join, participate, and put some investment in terms of money or effort to this platform. If you identify this clearly, the platform, the ecosystem starts to grow, and other stakeholders that show, okay, this one entered the system and growing by the ecosystem itself, I should also join to those ecosystem. So showing that value clearly is an important step, and making this platform at the center of the ecosystem, the application, whatever, should be developed by the common feedback and common interest for all parties. If one stakeholder, one member of the ecosystem is, let's say, ruling the whole thing, it will not work for sure.
I agree. The only thing I would add is that the platform needs to be easy to use.
Oh, yes.
Right? Because what you don't want is to have to develop for each stakeholder, right? It needs to be a common set of services that meet the needs of, your like 80-20 rule. And then if there needs to be any configuration work, you need to provide the tools and the capabilities to do that type of configuration work. Because what you don't want to have is your ecosystem waiting in a line to come in through a priority funnel and try to prioritize. So absolutely, I agree 100%. I would just add that it's got to be easy to use, and it's got to be, really with a self-serve mindset.
I was going to say technology agnostic is one
Yes.
way that I would talk about
Right.
it. So we talk
Yeah.
about it as technology agnostic and secure, so that anybody can come in and off of the platform.
Right.
And you did a great job at Adobe Cloud Experience Center with that,
Oh.
user-friendly and convenient way.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Do we have another? We have none outside. Do we have any other? We have 5 minutes, yes. So we have time for certainly one more question. Is there any other questions out in the audience?
I can't see.
So if we don't have any questions, what I thought we would end up with is, what is the capability that you are working on that is top of mind right now and that you think is most important to your future success? August, would you like to start? We'll go to Cynthia.
Well, I would like to give an example. Right now, we are looking for the emerging tech constantly, and quantum computing is under our radar. And what we are trying to make is preparing our group for the, let's say, future competitiveness in quantum computing. So it will come at a time, and we need to know how it is working, how it can add benefit to our companies, and we now at the stage of identifying the use cases. Luckily, we found 2 for financial services and manufacturing, and now trying some POCs. If they'll be successful, they'll show the way to other companies.
So really, quantum computing, and is it beyond, say, cybersecurity? Are you looking at other kinds of use cases other than cyber?
Mostly for business optimization.
Really? Okay, interesting. We're going to come talk to you. This sounds like a case. Mikhail.
So I would say that the number one aspect of a lot of transformational teams are missing is literally a customer's opinion. So few IT executives actually have met and shook hand of an honest to goodness customer, not internal customer, an external customer. And so going out on a sales call with a sales team from your company and meeting an honest to goodness customer and hearing what are their objections, what are they looking for from our product or service is invaluable. Because there are lots of discussions, lots of workshop opinions come up. Oh, customers need this. No, customers need that. And it's an internal IT discussion, and it's 2 degrees removed from the actual customer because because you're talking to an internal operation that will then talk to salespeople, that will then talk to customers. So that would be the number one idea that I'd like to throw your way. I'm a consultant, so I only make recommendations.
So I will say, in some of the research that we've done about top-performing CIOs, top-performing CIOs in terms of profitability or innovation, they're spending at least very close to 20%, if not more, of their time with external customers. And so that is actually one of the key pieces of their job that we find. Cynthia, I'll let you wrap it up.
So I'll build on that. I do spend time with our customers, and it's absolutely great. And what I tell my team is always put yourself in the shoes of the customer to understand what they need and want in the area of services and everything else that we build. From a technology perspective, I think it's really getting into the next generation of AI, generative AI, and how we can use that to improve the customer experience and everything that we do in the back office. So combo answer.
Really wonderful, wonderful. And thank you so much for attending. Thank you to Mikhail, Oğuz, and Cynthia. And I think that we're ready for the next session. Thank you.